In the last video, we talked to you about how values influence our decisions and our behavior, and values are revealed by emotions. In this video here, we want to help you become aware of what those values are. Instead of being kind of wondering and bewildered, we'll help you dial down deeply into what your values are. Now, some of you are sitting here thinking, I know what my values are. I even teach values. But folks, I can tell you that this is one of the modules we have in CREST that surprises a lot of people, because we're often only aware of the surface values, the ones that are most obvious. And we don't realize that there are other values that are deeper within us and not so obvious, but are still crucial to recognize. So let's help you understand that one. And the book that we are drawing from to help us with this is Pat Lencioni's book called The Advantage. In that book, there's a chapter about discovering the values of an organization, but the chapter is instructive to us as individuals as well. So he points out that there are different kinds of values, and they're not all equal, and they're not all core. And what we're trying to discover here is, what are core values to you? So let's say that in this diagram here that he shows, that we have here for the PowerPoint, that this sphere represents you, and that there's layers in you. So the very top layer we might call aspirational, or these are values that we think we ought to have. They may not actually represent who you really are, but we just think, we should include them. But when you honestly evaluate the time and energy you put toward them, it may become clear from that particular audit that they're really not core. They're just good things that we know we should value. Now, the next kind of value that Lencioni points out is that there are some values that are accidental. These are simply behavioral patterns that have just happened over time. They came about unintentionally. You didn't necessarily pick them. It's just the way things are. It might be values from your home that you grew up in, or the culture that you live within. They just are. And you've picked them up unintentionally. And they're often traits that we get from the environment, but we didn't pick them. It's actually really good for us to be aware, what are the values that we operate on that are just part of our environment? Are those right? We want to help you think about them. Then a layer down from there are values that Pat Lencioni calls permission to play. Now, these are the minimal behavioral standards that are required to participate in a group. Standards like honesty, integrity, respect. These are typical values that every group would demand if you're going to play in this group. And these are often the values that a group will post on their wall, like a business will post, or a ministry will post it. And these are good values. They're essential for teams to function. But then we come to what we would call the core values. And we usually only have a few, maybe 3 to 5, that we can say are truly foundational to us. We may have lots of values, but for them to be really core for us, they've got to be what's most important to us. So here's a question, John, that we need to think about and discuss here together. If these core values are so intrinsic to us and so powerful, can they actually change?
Well, if they can, it would take a major event or something major to shift our core of who we are, right?
Yes. And that's exactly right, John. It's usually a traumatic event or very big event that will actually shift some of our core things. And so when people go through trauma, that is a disorienting experience. And sometimes it actually knocks out certain values that they used to have, that because now of the experience and their interpretation of it, they have jettisoned certain values. So we need to be aware, what are we doing with our core values?
Yeah. And another thing to be aware of is that just because it's a value of yours uh, doesn't mean that it should be,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we learn things as we experience life. So some of those values that come up actually have a dark side to them.
Mm.
And it's, sometimes it's hard to believe that something so important to me could actually have a dark side, because I'm not a dark person. But um, but they can if they're taken to the extreme, and that's most things, right?
Yeah.
Anything that's taken to the extreme usually will have negative implications. So to understand this, it may be best just to consider some examples. So think about the value of respect. When a team is full of mutual respect, then there is amazing cooperation, with everyone striving to be a good team player. And that catalyzes unity. That is what respect leads to as a healthy value. However, taken to an extreme, it could create an unhealthy dependence on what people think, or a gullibility in giving respect when it's not earned, or even lead to a deception if respect is so desired that someone is willing even to lie to get it.
Mm. Yeah.
And we've probably all been there, actually, where we haven't completely told the truth because we didn't want to lose respect.
Mm.
Here's another value. Take a look at this one. Improvement. In a healthy mindset, this value stirs a desire and a commitment to learn, which leads to personal growth and then expands to help others improve and have a widespread impact. Awesome. The dark side of improvement drives people into unrealistic expectations for themselves or for others, and then perhaps inevitably into a sense of failure, right? Failure is a risk in this case when improvement is taken to an extreme, when you need to see that improvement at all costs. Then as failure becomes familiar due to this obsession with improving, well then so do things like discontent and even depression. So you see how that travels. So your values have a dark side if they are unbalanced. Just because it's a value doesn't mean it should go unchecked. Because inevitably where we're heading with this is when you align your values with your strengths, with your experiences and your gifts and all that, you become an integrated person. So, values are a gift to you. They are God's guidance through life and point you to your purpose. Your sense of purpose, driven by your values, finds its way into all the major areas of your life and your organization.
Yep.
Jesus invited his disciples to come with him, see where he lived and how he lived, so they could see his purpose in everything he did and cared about. Identifying your value system and personal purpose statement is an extremely important part of this course. It's also critical to your leadership.
So I'm going to walk you through our materials to help you dig down to find out your core values. So one way to get into that is to look at a list of value words. In fact, that's in your curriculum. It's a good way to start. You can see that this page here has got a whole bunch of words on here. And what we are going to ask you to do is to read over the words and circle the words that kind of stand out to you. Like those are important words. And then once you've circled them all, you have a whole bunch of them. Then you need to group them. You know, like on the paper that I did here, I also used the same paper and I circled them and then I link the ones that kind of make sense and they group for me. And you can see how important it is for anybody to get personal clarity. You got to drill down to know what are you actually living for And how do you want to live that out? Everybody's set of values are unique. And if on the page there in our curriculum, you don't see a word that you want, well, just write it in there then. Put it in there, because this is just a tool to help you get clarity on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you will do this, you will be able to lead more clearly, because if you're clear, your leadership will be clearer and your people will know how you operate and how to align themselves with you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, in summary, we human beings, we're motivated by purpose. And when there is a clear, burning purpose to our lives, it energizes us into action. It answers the why questions of our life. If we don't have a purpose, or if we have no hope of ever attaining our purpose, we become disheartened. And quite frankly, human beings without heart don't live well or very long. So, leadership that inspires is leadership that is connected directly to purpose and values. And the clearer and the brighter your purpose and your clarity on yourself, the better your leadership is.
Yeah.
So, we want to encourage you to take the time to work deeply on this till you get it and it rings true for you. So, we leave that for you to do. Meanwhile, we will actually be anticipating you in the next lesson, and that's called Establishing Integrity. And that's when what you say you believe is actually being lived out in your actions. And you are one person. No matter where you are, you're the same person. You don't have to be a camouflage or a chameleon. You are one integral person. We'll talk about that one next time.
Excellent.